I'm back with you. I missed you guys last Wednesday. We had no live review last Wednesday, but we are back this week for AEW Dynamite, which I am happy to say was an improvement over last week. This was definitely a better show than the one they had last Wednesday. Still not as good as Beach Break, but it was better than what we got before. We actually got a couple of really good matches on the show tonight, including Darby Allin challenging for the TNT Championship against Kevin Knight. We also had a tag team match with Brodito taking on Kyle Fletcher and Kazuchika Okada. We actually had two more women's segments than we had on Raw Monday night. We had a big goose egg on Raw Monday. Tonight we had a go-home promo between Willow Nightingale and Tekla for their Women's World Championship match this Sunday at Redemption. And we had a no disqualification Women's Tag Team Championship match. Megan Bayne and Lena Cross defending their titles against the Sisters of Sin, which is more than I can say for, again, the women's influence on the show on Monday. We also had tensions boiling over, really for the first time, between Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay. And as I talked about in my Dynamite review, again, I wasn't live last week, but I talked about Dynamite on the Sound Off on Sunday. And I said, you know, the catalyst here to some tension between Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay is going to be Jon Moxley. You know, I mean, it only made sense. They would use him as a tool to kind of drive a wedge between the two of them. And we saw that really blow over for the first time tonight in this main event, which was Omega, Ospreay, and Moxley, all on the same side against the Don Callis family. And things got out of hand late in the match, and then after the match, things got out of hand with all three men, so we'll get into what happened there. And then there was some stuff on the show that didn't hit as well, which included the return of Switchblade Jay White. It was really good to see Jay White back in the ring in singles action for the first time in, 15 months, I believe is what they said. I just wish it was a more exciting match. I can't say the match tonight was... exciting is not a word I would use to describe the match that he had tonight with Clark Connors. We have a Redemption pay-per-view coming up on Sunday that very much feels like a filler show. Not that there aren't going to be, some great matches on the card. There absolutely will be. Whether or not you think it's worth your $40 or $50 is going to be a different story. Or you could go the My AEW route and you can get the show for $19.99. You could always do that. But yeah, we're gonna run down the redemption card a little bit later on as well. That's coming up on Sunday. This though is Wednesday, and it is your AEW Dynamite review. It is July 22nd, 2026. I am the Solomonster. Like and subscribe. Super chats are open. We got a brand new one too. Got a brand new $15 one. You can check out the description down below. But get the super chats on in. I will be reading all of your messages. I also want to give a quick plug here for a brand new episode of the Uncrowned Wrestling Show, which went up yesterday. You can find it on the Ariel Helwani Show feed, the podcast feed, that is, not YouTube. And always love getting feedback from you guys on Uncrowned. We're also going to bust out the wheel here and see what our likes goal is going to be for our Be the Booker segment. We spin the wheel, we find out how many likes we need as a minimum. That's what we do here. And for tonight, the number is 390. 390 likes. What are we at? We're not even at 200 yet. No bueno. No bueno. So you guys work on that. We got the goal. We got the plugs. I think we're good. I think we can just dive right into. I have a feeling this is going to be an express review. That's going to be up to you guys, but we're going to zip on through this here. We're going to start from the very beginning. Because we had the announcers on screen, Excalibur, running things down for us here at the beginning of the program. And we had Kenny Omega, we had Jon Moxley, and Will Ospreay being billed for the main event tonight. They were going to be closing the show against the Don Callis family. And now we had a backstage segment with Omega and Ospreay appearing together. Ospreay pointed out to Kenny that the two of them were undefeated whenever they teamed together. And so they were teasing each other about reaching out during the match when the other one gets tired. All of a sudden, Jon Moxley walked into the shot and very sarcastically said, oh, there's no tension in the room. And then he walked away. And Omega said, well, there wasn't until he walked in. Again, that's the role that Moxley is there to play. Moxley is there to basically cause problems between the two of them, because this brother stuff is not going to be very interesting. We have many more weeks to go until we get to London, and we need Omega and Ospreay to start butting heads, and Jon Moxley is going to be the conduit to that. But they open in ring with Kevin Knight, the man who was in the main event this Sunday challenging for the AEW World Championship. He has a title of his own, and tonight he was defending that title, the TNT Championship, against the former champion, 2 times, I believe, Darby Allin. Renee was at ringside, and she brought up Darby being forced to pull out of last year's Continental Classic after he sustained an injury. I believe he was concussed in his tournament match against Kevin Knight. Even before the bell, Darby just wrecked him with a low tope out of the ring, tossed him into the crowd. Eventually, they made their way back to ringside, and the match finally started. Ahead of a commercial break, Darby sent him outside, and then he hit him with a coffin drop. And Darby was getting ready later on in the match for a Scorpion Death Drop when Knight sent him colliding into the referee. And that sent him out to the floor. I believe it was Paul Turner, if I'm not mistaken. So Knight went outside. He grabs the TNT title. Darby, though, was able to duck the belt shot. He hit the Death Drop. And then he took a long look at the championship. He decided against using it because he's a good guy. That didn't work out too well for Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania last year. So anyway, he ditched the belt, opted not to use it. He went for a coffin drop, but he got crotched. And Knight then blasted him in the back of the head with the belt, hung him upside down in the Tree of Woe. Knight went to the opposite side of the ring, opposite end on the same side, and he connected on a coast-to-coast. Now, if you remember when Darby got hurt, when he got his bell rung in the first match back at the C2 last year against Kevin Knight, it was on that very move. So he hit him with the coast-to-coast, and then he dragged Paul Turner back into the ring. He landed the UFO splash for the pin to retain the TNT title. After the match, Knight's out there. He's celebrating. He's reveling in his win. Kyle Fletcher's music hits, fellow member of the Callis family. He makes his way out, followed by Kazuchika Okada. So we had Proto Okada coming out to the ring ahead of the break because they had a tag team match coming up on the opposite side of the break. But let me stop there. So as far as the match itself, I still feel the same way that I felt last week. And the way that I felt last week was it would have made more sense and I think been better if you wanted to do Darby Allin against Kevin Knight on this show. Don't bother making it a TNT Championship match. Make it a non-title match. Put the number one contendership on the line with the winner going to Redemption this Sunday. I know it would be very short notice, and maybe they just didn't want to wait until the very last minute, right, to announce what their main event was going to be. But you do a non-title match. And you do Darby Allin, you do Kevin Knight. The winner gets Kenny Omega in Montreal on Sunday. They opted not to do that. They wanted this to be a title match. I guess, Knight was going to win either way, but this is their way of giving him a big momentum win, I guess, going into the pay-per-view. I just think to do it the other way would have made more sense. But with Darby losing, question now is, do they run this match back at Wembley? He lost here, but Kevin Knight cheated, right? He hit him with the belt. So do they run this match back for the title in London at the end of next month? Or are we looking at some kind of a tag team match? Now, there's been all kinds of speculation about Mick Foley, and is he going to wrestle at London? They want him, he wants to maybe do a match on the big stadium show. And I really don't have any interest in seeing that. Darby Allin has said he does not want to wrestle Mick Foley, ever. But he would love to team with him. Would they get Mick in the ring to do a tag team match on that show? And maybe Darby and Mick are a tag team against the Callis family. Anything's possible. They could just as easily run this back for the TNT title. I don't know what they're going to do with Darby on that show. That's still 5 or 6 weeks down the road. But for this night anyway, Darby got his shot and he lost. And so that's where things stand. Now, when they came back from the break, Renee was in the ring with what looked like maybe half the Don Callis family. It most definitely was not all the members of the Callis family. Let's say half of them. Mark Davis spoke, which is a rarity. We never get to hear him speak on these shows. And he mentioned laying out Andrade on Collision last week. So Kevin Knight brought up having the most consecutive TNT title defenses, breaking Kyle Fletcher's record, and how he did it without the help of the Callis family. Fletcher says that Knight thinks he's really impressive. He thinks he's hot shit. Says, you know what? I hope you do become Jet 2 belts on Sunday. Fletcher said that he doesn't need help from the Callis family either, and he's going to make sure that everybody is banned from ringside when he defends his international title this Sunday against Bandito. And even better, he's going to have some fun here. Everyone is banned for their match with Brodito right now. And he tells Kevin Knight, get the hell out of the ring. He shoved the mic in his chest and he shoved him backwards. And so then there was another shove, and the other members of the family had to get between the two of them to be separated. I like that. I like that. I think it's okay to have some tension between the members, when the competitive juices start flowing. And if it ends up with another member or two being sacrificed and leaving the Callis family, I'm all for that too, because we all know that as soon as you get one member gone, there's going to be 2 more that get added. It doesn't really matter in the end. It's basically addition by subtraction with this faction. But it was Kyle Fletcher and Kazuchika Okada against Brody King and Bandito. Hey, King Solomon in the chat. I love you too, brother. Thank you, my friend. So, we had 2 great teams here in this match. What kind of match do you think they had? It's Brody King, Bandito, Kyle Fletcher, and Okada. They would be incapable of having anything other than a very good match, at the very least. Late in that match, though, Okada went for a Rainmaker, and Brody ducked, and Okada took out Fletcher with the Rainmaker by accident. Uh-oh. Okada then turned right into a rolling elbow and a tope outside from Brody. Bandito tried for the 21-plex to Fletcher. He got him up. He dropped him with it. He folded him up, and he pinned him. His challenger got the win. He got the drop on Kyle Fletcher here tonight. After the match, Fletcher got into it with Okada. He got up in his face. He's screaming, "This is your fault." and he had to be held back by Mark Davis and Lance Archer. Okada, meanwhile, basically just bailed up the ramp. And so Brodito now, they were alone in the ring. They were outnumbered, and the Callis family was closing in. We heard Andrade El Idolo's music hit, and he ran out to even up the score as the family thought better of it. So, look, we got great stuff here in the ring from these four. Brodito is always great. They're such a great team. Better to give Bandito the win here, though, as they did, since he ain't going to be getting one on Sunday. At least they gave him the win here. And they did the finish in a way also that puts more heat on Okada and Fletcher, which is going to be important when we come around to London next month. Because I still think we're getting a three-way. I think Okada's going to be involved. I mean, he almost has to be involved in that match. You know, when Takeshita comes back, all three of them in the ring together at Wembley, international title. That's the match we're looking at. And so they were able to work the finish in a way that kind of pushed that further along, which I liked. And the tension, again, with the two of them is only going to continue. I don't know when Takeshita will be back on TV. It may not be until a couple of weeks, I think, is when he's due back. A couple of weeks before All In. Speaking of Mick Foley, I mentioned him a moment ago. Mick Foley comes out, and he got a nice ovation. I don't know that the people in the building necessarily expected him to be there, but he made his way out onto the ramp, and he was there to moderate a face-to-face, which took place on the stage and not in the ring. A face-to-face between the two women who are going to be wrestling for the Women's World Championship this Sunday. Tekla, the Toxic Spider, the champion, was out first, and her challenger, Willow Nightingale. So Tekla was out there calling herself Tekla Two Belts because she had the AEW Women's World title around her waist, and then also around her waist, just above the AEW title, she had her Artist of Stardom belt that she won on Saturday with Sky Blue and Julia Hart. That's the trios belts from Stardom. I'm over the whole two belts thing, by the way. If I never hear this two belts thing from anybody in wrestling, for a long time, I'll be okay. We have Kevin Knight, of course, who's going to be Jet two belts after Sunday. We have Tekla two belts. We've had a bunch of people, the two belts in WWE. I don't need it anymore. We don't need any more two belts. I'm good with it for a while. Willow said that it's great not only to see Mick, but everybody here tonight in Nashville, even you, Tekla. She says that there's only one match standing between her and her dream, and she's going to take the World Championship on Sunday. So Tekla, she says she knows Willow is made up of rainbows and chirping birds, but she's talking to the toxic one. She doesn't buy any of that smile anyway crap. She says Willow is poisoned inside, so she's going to beat the poison out of her so everyone can see how ugly she truly is. Willow says everyone knows this toxic act is a facade. Tekla may have swagger, but she's just a shortcut for Willow to get her belt at Redemption. So Foley had to step in between them, and I'm watching this. And good on Mick, by the way. He's clearly, dropped a lot of weight. And it just seemed to me like he was going to be very easily bowled over if things got a little out of hand here with these two women, that he was potentially in jeopardy of being dropped here. I'm watching this and I'm like, what's he going to do? He's getting in between them to try to hold them back. I'm like, what is he going to do? He's not going to do anything. But he says he sees himself in Willow. They are both, or were both, champions on TBS. Both have taken beatings, but smiled through it, even if Willow had more teeth in her mouth than he did in his. Tekla told him to shut the hell up. Willow said, look, I'm fed up with your disrespect. She called Tekla a dumb bitch. Tekla couldn't believe that she stole her line, but she says on Sunday when she's standing over her, beaten and bloodied with her dreams pissed on, just remember, smile anyway. So Tekla slapped her. Foley again got in between them, and I think Tekla was using him as like a human shield. And Tekla got a cheap shot in with the microphone. So they ended up in the ring. Tekla, she's flipping off Foley. She's holding up both of her belts. So Tekla took her belt off, her regular belt. She was going to whip Willow with it. Instead, Willow pounced her right out of the ring. And that was the end of that. The challenger stood tall here, which I don't know. I don't know if that bodes well for Willow on Sunday. I'm still sticking with her as my pick, though. I thought this was fine. I thought this was good. It was good to get the back and forth between them. The fact they did it on the stage and not in the ring, I mean, who cares? It's fine. It's just something different. And I thought, again, it was good. Sometimes I watch, first of all, I love Tekla. I think Tekla's great. Sometimes in these promos, though, I don't know if she's trying too hard. I don't know. It's like sometimes it's okay to have more of a regular promo. It seems like the volume with her is always up to like an 11. So maybe dial it back a little bit. Maybe every now and then I think could probably benefit her in these types of segments. But I think she's great. Willow is just a great babyface. She's a great babyface. I think that she's going to be the one walking into London as the champion, but if Tekla were to somehow still walk in as the champion, it's not like I would mind it or be upset about that. I just think that everything has been positioned from the big surprise return in the gauntlet match to her getting the shot on this show for a reason. I don't think she was being reintroduced just to go in there and lose on Sunday. And there's still speculation, and I didn't buy into it at first, but there could very well be something to this, that she was never really hurt. They wanted a way to get the TBS title off of her without beating her so they could get her prepped and ready to win the world title. And that may well be the case. I still think that the odds are in her favor on Sunday. And then in that case, what Tekla does at All In, I just hope she's on the card. If she's not going to be in the championship match, I don't know if they're going to be having a casino gauntlet for both the men and the women or just the men. If there's a gauntlet match, she could be in the gauntlet. She could do something with the Sisters of Sin. I don't know. I haven't thought too much about what Tekla would do in the event that she drops the belt on Sunday. Hopefully they'll have a decent role for her, but I'm still stuck on that Willow and Mercedes match. I feel like that's the one that we're looking at. We got a video package for Hikaru Shida against Maya World for the TBS title at Redemption this Sunday. Maya looking to win her first championship in AEW. Shida says that it will continue to be the best is Shida. See, TBS. And they made the announcement that Maya and Willow are going to team up to take on Tekla and Shida on Collision this Saturday. We had Switchblade, Jay White, in his first singles bout in 15 months, taking on Clark Connors. So let me say this. I am glad to see Jay White back in the ring. I'm glad to see him healthy again because for the longest time he wasn't, and he was just sort of out of sight, out of mind. He's had a couple of different injury setbacks in his time in AEW. This match, though, was a slog to sit through. I'm sorry. This match never got out of first gear. It didn't help that Clark Connors was in control for like 80% of it. It felt like this was a tough one here. Connors rolled out of a Blade Runner attempt into a roll-up with a handful of tights, only for 2. He tried for a spear, ran right into a guillotine choke, though, and White rolled into a bridge and cranked back on it, and he got the submission. A new finish. Not that the Blade Runner is gone, but he's incorporating something new in as a finish here. After the match, Connors attacked. He ended up eating a Blade Runner anyway. David Finlay came out. He blasted White with the shillelagh. Juice Robinson sprinted to the ring with the Bang Bang Gang. Finlay and Connors, they bailed out through the crowd. This was not great. I won't say it was terrible. It was just kind of there. It's the best way I could really describe it. But again, it's good to see Jay White back in the ring because he was gone for so long. And I would imagine, when it comes to London next month, I could see them doing a singles match with him and Finlay. They're not doing it on Sunday. In fact, they made the announcement in the back later. Juice Robinson was there with the rest of the members of the Bang Bang Gang, and he had a chain. And he pitched the idea of chaining the dogs up to the Bang Bang Gang at Redemption. And he basically made the challenge to what I believe is a tag team match, him and Jay White against Finlay and Connors for what he called a double chain match. Now, he never used the words dog collar, because as soon as I saw the chain, I just assumed this was going to be a dog collar challenge, right? They're facing a team that literally is called the Dogs. It would make sense if they wanted to use the dog collar stipulation. They went out of their way not to say the words dog collar, so it sounds like it's just going to be a chain match. A double chain match. Maybe it's more like a strap match, only with chains instead of a strap. But I don't think that they're going to be bound by the neck or anything like that. Or they will, but I'm just saying in this case they didn't mention that. So there's your 9th match now. We have 9 matches confirmed for the pay-per-view on Sunday. We had Adam Copeland and Christian Cage backstage starting a promo. They didn't get too deep into it when they were attacked by Claudio Castagnoli and Pac of the Death Riders, who are going to be challenging for the championships on Sunday. Copeland he had his head placed down on top of a production case, and Pac was standing on top of the case. He came in, he gave him a curb stomp on top of the case. And then he asked, do you think that you can walk with the Death Riders, that it was going to be a cakewalk? They've bitten off way more than they can chew. He and Claudio were going to remind them on Sunday exactly what the Death Riders are capable of, and they're going to ruin their homecoming in Montreal. Even though they're not from Montreal. But I guess any Canadian, it's a homecoming. When you head back up north, it doesn't matter if it's Winnipeg, it doesn't matter if it's Ottawa, it doesn't matter if it's Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto, Saskatchewan. There's that Canadian pride. So it doesn't matter where you're from, what province you're from. It's a homecoming for Kenny Omega. It's a homecoming for Christian Cage. And it's a homecoming for Adam Copeland. And the Death Riders are going to ruin the homecoming, except you and I both know that that's not going to happen. This is a bump in the road until we get to the real match, which is going to involve the Young Bucks. And who knows, potentially another team that we're not seeing on TV yet. But at the very least, the Young Bucks. We're getting the Young Bucks and Cope and Christian. They're going to build that thing up as a dream match. A dream match that you never thought you would see. First time ever. Wembley Stadium. It's going to say it on the marquee. Claudio and Pac, they have one job on Sunday. To literally do the job. And that's it. Speaking of tag teams, after this, we had the AEW Women's Tag Team Championships. On the line, Divine Dominion, who I have to say, they have a pretty cool entrance. So they have these giant screens on either side of the entranceway. And on one side on the video wall, you have Lena Cross speaking, cutting a promo. On the other video panel, you have Megan Bayne speaking, cutting a promo. Then they sort of turn inward and walk in, and then they actually walk out from the entranceway. I like that. A true tag team. I hate to say it, the best thing that could have happened was the fact that they came together. It wasn't planned. Penelope Ford got hurt. It sucks that that happened. And wherever she is, hopefully she's either recovered or nearly recovered. The team, though, was Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. Ford got hurt. These two ended up being paired off. This is a much more natural team. I mean, they just walk out there, and it's such a natural fit. So anyway, they walk out, and they're defending their tag team titles here against the Sisters of Sin. Sky Blue and Julia Hart. Two heel teams. Heel against heel. This was a no disqualification match that was made after the Sisters of Sin threw out the challenge on Collision. They had just won titles in Stardom. They wanted more gold. So why not? They threw out the challenge to the women's tag team champions. So the challengers attacked right away with kendo sticks. I mean, that gives you a sense of what kind of match we were looking at here. Yeah, Roderick says the female skyscrapers. That's exactly what they are. They walk out there. Lena Cross is tall. I really like Lena Cross. Lena Cross is great. And, but yeah, just again, the aesthetics of it, just when they walk out side by side like that, it's true. It is like a female version of the skyscrapers. They're just a much more natural fit than Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford were. Early on, we got some friendly fire. Julia had Megan lined up for a screwdriver shot, but she ended up hitting Sky Blue with it by accident, which busted her open. Not too badly, but she was bleeding. It looked like maybe from the hairline. We see a table set up on the ramp. Bane is standing on top of 2 chairs, and we end up getting a double team power bomb from the Sisters of Sin to Megan Bane through the table. Later on, both teams, they grabbed their respective title belts. Julia and Sky, they missed when they went for belt shots, but they countered a double suplex attempt into a double DDT instead. Hart and Bane, they fought off on the floor. We see Lena is set up on the top rope, and Sky Blue fights her off. She hits the cheeky Nando's kick. So Sky is going to go to the apron, and she wants a superplex. There's a table set up outside the ring. She's going to be looking for a superplex. Megan comes over, though, and she chokeslams her off the apron, and down through the table goes Sky Blue. Sky Blue, by the way, she lives for this shit. If you've heard her talk before in interviews or whatever, like that hardcore style, getting all bloody and everything. I mean, look, go back to Blood and Guts. What was it, the first 90 seconds of the match? She's bleeding a gusher. So she lives for this kind of stuff. This is right up her alley. So she took this big bump through the table outside. And so at that point, Julia Hart is back in. She sinks in the Black Widow submission on Megan Bane. Bane fought free, basically just swung her up into position for a tombstone pile driver. And then Cross and Bane, they delivered their From Heaven to Hell double chokeslam for the win to retain the titles. They worked hard to try to make this as physical as possible and really feel like a battle. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it was your typical plunder match. We see them every week. There really was nothing that set this one apart from all the other ones that you've seen. If you've seen one, you've seen them all. But they were out there working their tails off to try to, make this more than just your average match. It came off as one of the tougher challenges that Bane and Cross have had in their run together as tag team champions. But we're all just waiting for the obvious match in London. This is all building to the Brawling Birds. Jamie Hayter, Alex Windsor, they're going to get their shot at All In, and they will be the ones to end the reign of the Divine Dominion. This is kind of where we are right now, where there's a series of matches that we can see off in the distance. And it's very unlikely, barring injury, that there's going to be any detour for any of these matches pulling off the road. So all we're doing here is we're trying to stall and kill time until we get to the matches that we know are coming. I mean, that's really where we are. They could put these two women in the ring with anybody. Nobody will believe that they're dropping the belts to anybody other than the Brawling Birds. And it's felt that way for a couple of months now. It's not like they just became number one contender or this all just became some big revelation. We could see this coming from 5 miles away. I'm not sure who else they would even be working with, frankly, in the meantime. They'll have a series of random matches, maybe a couple more title defenses, but we all know the match that we're going to be getting soon. Apparently, I should mention this. Apparently, Japanese Twitter, Stardom fans on Twitter, Stardom Twitter, they are obsessed with Julia Hart. They love Julia Hart. Now, the Sisters of Sin, the whole Triangle of Madness, were just in Japan. Again, they won the Trios belts in Stardom. Julia, though, is taking part in the Grand Prix. So she's on her way back to Japan. It's almost like a little mini excursion that she's going on. Very much like Anna Jay. Anna Jay also participated in the Grand Prix a couple of years ago. Went to Japan, worked there for a while, like a matter of weeks, and then made her way back. So Julia Hart is on her way. I hope that she can level up her game. Because more so than Sky Blue, I watch Julia in these matches, and she's like the weak link out there. I think something like this could turn out to be a good thing for her. Her going over to Japan and working with the folks over there, that may yet do her some good. That would be my hope, with her going over there. But again, you take one gander on Twitter and she's very popular. I mean, it's not hard to see why, but she's very popular. And in the main event, we had the AEW World Champion Kenny Omega teaming up with his all-in opponent, Will Ospreay, and the Continental Champion, Jon Moxley, to take on the Don Callis family, which in this example was the CMLL World Champion, Hechicero, Brian Cage, and Jake Doyle. So the story here, Jon Moxley didn't want to have anything to do with Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega didn't want to have anything to do with Jon Moxley. They didn't want to tag into each other. They were avoiding it. Ospreay finally, he urged Omega, tag him in. And so finally he relented, didn't look very happy about it, kind of rolled his eyes, but he tagged in Moxley. So the Callis family, they isolated Moxley for a while. He recovered. He made a tag to Ospreay. Doyle knocked Moxley off the apron and took down Omega. So the heels were in control heading into the final commercial break. No 20-minute overrun tonight, by the way, which was very nice. I didn't get to watch the show live last week, but apparently there was a 22-minute overrun. Completely unnecessary. Ospreay made a comeback. Had to make a choice now. Who do I tag? So he chose Omega. Enough! That's right. Enough of this crap. Hey, Barry MK. Barry says, enough. It's that brand new $15 super chat. Barry, thank you. Barry coming in the clutch. Look at that. Barry says, enough. Is Julia still married? I don't know. What are you asking me for? How the hell should I know? You're asking the wrong guy. I don't know what her marital status is. But I'm sure if you go and ask Japanese Twitter, they could probably clue you in. So anyway, he chose Omega to tag in, and that'll be something to watch. If Moxley brings that up, the fact that Ospreay did not tag him in, but he tagged in Kenny instead. Omega hit the forward roll into the slam and then the moonsault on Brian Cage. Only got a 2 count out of it. Hechicero tagged in. He applied a whole series of submissions. Omega was crawling towards Moxley, but he couldn't make it. Moxley, though, jumped into the ring. He starts stomping on Hechicero. Ospreay flew into the ring. He took out Hechicero. And then Moxley hit a cutter. Ospreay dove out onto Jake Doyle at ringside, and Omega delivered a suplex to Brian Cage with a little help from Jon Moxley. But then Omega caught Moxley with an accidental V-trigger. Or was it? The accidental knee strike. Ospreay went to go check on his fellow Death Rider. The heels triple-teamed Omega until Ospreay made the save. They tried for, I believe it was a double doomsday device on Omega and Ospreay. Moxley, though, knocked Hechicero off the ropes. Omega and Ospreay, they delivered a V-trigger and hidden blade combo to Hechicero, and they pinned the CMLL World Champion. This was the biggest surprise of the entire match, the entire show, perhaps, that it was Hechicero who took the pin here and not Jake Doyle. Jake Doyle was spared. But they pinned the CMLL champion. AEW would never. AEW would never. The shoe was on the other foot? Never. So after the match, Omega handed Moxley the Continental title. Right? Everything seemed to be okay with these men. Tried to apologize. I didn't mean to hit you with that V-trigger earlier. Moxley didn't want to hear any of this. He shoves him. Omega shoved them back. We got a face-off between the two of them. Now Ospreay's got to get in between them to try to separate them. And Omega, in the huff of everything, shoves Ospreay down. So now Ospreay gets back up to his feet. He's not happy. He's getting up in Omega's face, and everything is breaking down. Here come the Young Bucks down to the ring, try to play peacemaker. Moxley shoves down Matt Jackson. Now they're all fighting. We got Moxley and Ospreay are wrestling the Bucks on Sunday. So the four of them are going at it. Kenny Omega's looking at this going, oh my God. And he's trying to get in between all of them and trying to put a stop to all this. Doyle got in the ring. Doyle came up from behind Kenny. I don't know what I don't know what the plan was here. This came off very awkwardly. I don't know that Doyle really needed to play any role in this because Ospreay's back was turned. He threw a back elbow, not realizing that he had hit Omega with it. Maybe Doyle was out of position. I don't know. I just thought that whole sequence was a little weird. So he got hit with the accidental back elbow from Ospreay, and all of a sudden Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero randomly come down to the ring, and of course they get their asses handed to them by Omega, and they're both in the ropes, like draped over the middle rope. Omega is setting up to hit the ropes and come off with, a couple of V-triggers. As he hits the ropes and he comes off, Kevin Knight flies in. I don't even think he was on the top rope. I think he flew in from the ramp. They had this short ramp to the ring. And from off camera, so we couldn't see exactly where he was, but it looked like he dove from the ramp, cleared the top rope, and just blasted Omega right in the head with the TNT Championship. And he busted him open. So a belt shot right to the top of the skull. Knight held up the TNT title and the AEW World title. And the show faded out with Kevin Knight holding both belts over a bloody Kenny Omega. RPG Vice are the new Patterson and Briscoe. Well, Patterson and Briscoe were far more entertaining. I mean, you can't compare them. I don't want to be hearing the comparison there. Maybe a J&J Security might be a more apt comparison. Neither were as entertaining as Patterson and Briscoe. It was quite the dive. I will say that. Visually, it looked great because he just came flying in from out of nowhere, and looks like he may have blasted him in the head with the belt a little too well. But anyway, so it was Kevin Knight standing tall at the end of all this. They had to do something, to give Knight an edge heading into the main event on Sunday because he has no chance of walking out as the world champion. And the best that you would hope for is that he goes in there. They have this incredible main event that just solidifies him in the minds of people who maybe are still doubters as to whether or not Kevin Knight is a future main eventer in this company, right? Tony Khan decided we're going to put him in this position. Of all the options or matches they could have potentially gone with here, this is the one that he chose. Why? Why? Well, I mean, we kind of know why if Fightful is to be believed. And there's no reason not to believe Fightful. There was a report earlier today, and this was actually reported days ago, but there was a new report that MJF was the driving creative force behind the idea of having Kenny Omega defend the world championship on this pay-per-view against Kevin Knight in the main event. And the report noted that MJF had long wanted whoever held the TNT championship to challenge Kenny after Kenny beat him for the world title. However, the idea wasn't tied specifically to Kevin Knight. Fightful Select reports that MJF's vision centered on the TNT champion filling that role, regardless of who held the title at that time. And that's all well and good. And obviously, MJF is a very influential voice. Tony trusts him. He's one of the few real draws that Tony Khan has in that company. And I'm sure his voice carries a lot of weight. And he can give his input, and that's great. I maintain that it was foolish to not do that match on this pay-per-view. On a show called Redemption, with the story being built up in the way that it was. And again, it tied into this show so well and so perfectly. And in Canada, for Kenny to go in there and get his redemption. This gave Kenny a few extra weeks as champion. He hasn't defended it yet. This is going to be his first title defense on Sunday. All it did was just, it prolonged it. Well, not prolonged, but I mean, it kind of gave us the inevitable a few weeks early. But I think that the timing of it and the location of it, it would have been so much better. It made so much more sense to do it this Sunday. And now they may They may shoot some sort of angle at the end of the show that will tie into this whole Omega, Ospreay, Moxley thing. Maybe we see them make an appearance at the end. And if they could further that story for All In, that's great. I still maintain it was a mistake. It was a mistake not to do Omega and MJF on this show, because that would have been the big main event on Sunday. In the right place at the right time. I don't care whose idea it was. I think that was a mistake. Not that these two are not going to go out there and have a great match, but that's not the point. That's not the point. We know they're going to have a great match. I know that Kevin Knight has main event potential. I don't need AEW to try to convince me of that. I've seen the guy work. I know what he's capable of. Clearly, Tony Khan is very high on him, has been since the Continental Classic last year. Just given all the TV time he's gotten, the position that he's been in. That's why I said, like, before Dynasty, when they had the Gauntlet match to crown the new TNT champion, I think I was the only one who even threw Kevin Knight's name out there. I didn't see anybody else mention Kevin Knight. I'm like, it's going to be Kevin Knight. Because Tony Khan is super high on this guy. And so he went in there and he won the TNT championship. It wasn't a surprise to me. If you've been paying attention since December, then you would know that they see a lot in him. And that's great. Not that he's the only one. Kyle Fletcher is another. I mean, you can go down the list of all the different, Takeshita, Fletcher, Knight. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that they are banking their future on in terms of young talents. And it's great. They have this nice, nucleus of young talent. And Kevin Knight is right there near the top. And he's going to have plenty of opportunities. I don't know that it had to be this Sunday. The fact that he's going to go in there and lose, that's not even the point, because you can get over and still lose. At the end of the day, that's not even that big of a deal. But this idea that, he wanted the TNT champion to go in there and, be the one to wrestle for the world title. Why? We've seen this before. Why the desire to go back to this again? But anyway, as far as the main event itself, I thought it was solid. Nothing great. We've had better main events on this show. It served its purpose, which was to further the issues between Omega and Moxley, and in turn, Omega and Ospreay, heading into London. We're going to see a lot more of this in the weeks to come. Right? People talk about story. This is the story. Everything that's happened since Ospreay came back, it's all part of his story. His story was getting his neck broken last year, fighting through it, coming back, wanting to, in his own words, when he came back, murder Jon Moxley. He was going to murder this man. And not only did he not murder him, he lost to him. And so he was like a lost puppy. He didn't know. He had no sense of direction. And then they started this whole, the Death Riders taking him under their wing. And it's all built up to this moment here, where now Jon Moxley is in the middle of this. Right? I mean, as I said earlier, he's the conduit to the tensions that are going to begin to flare between these two men. And then coming out of All In, if you assume that Ospreay is going to win the championship, I still think Moxley will be right there, to be that first challenger. Because why wouldn't he be? Right? Why wouldn't Moxley want to step in and get a shot at that title? I still maintain that's still the final test. Getting that win back over Jon Moxley. It's all been part of Ospreay's story since he came back. So anyway, that was Dynamite tonight. Again, an improvement over what we saw last week. By no means their best effort of the year, but we had a couple of really good matches on the show. We saw in the main event, again, furthering that story. And now we have this Redemption pay-per-view on Sunday, which is in Montreal, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. So Tony bumped the start time of the show up by an hour because these shows are just fucking ridiculous. The last one was just beyond ridiculous. I mean, it went to almost 1 o'clock in the morning. It's completely unnecessary. So bumping it up by an hour will help alleviate that a little bit. I hope that becomes the norm. 6 p.m. start time for the buy-in. On the buy-in, apparently, they are celebrating 80 years of the Rougeau wrestling dynasty. So Jacques Rougeau and I think Raymond Rougeau, other members of the family will be there. I'm sure Jacques will enjoy every moment of it. He loves being in the spotlight. Here's the card for the main pay-per-view here. We have the Death Riders. Jon Moxley and Will Ospreay are going to be taking on the Young Bucks. Nick Jackson. I'm going with the Bucks to get the win here. It's more interesting if Ospreay and Moxley take the loss. And if the Bucks are going to be challenging Cope and Christian, they should get the win here. We have the Painmaker. I'm sure this is going to be a bloody, brutal affair. Tommaso Ciampa is quaking in his boots as he prepares to step into combat with the Painmaker, Chris Jericho. This should be a win for Jericho. Jericho had sand thrown in his eyes in their first match of Beach Break, and he lost. I think he gets his win back here. Watch for the power drill. Hikaru Shida will retain her TBS title over Maya World. I don't see a title change there. Cage and Cope defend the AEW Tag Team titles against Claudio and Pac. That'll be a win for Copeland and Christian. In Canada, Mark Davis. Unfortunately, I think we have come to the end of his singles title run. Perhaps his only one. Hopefully it won't be his only one. I really like Mark Davis. I wouldn't mind seeing him one day with the international title or the TNT title. But he's going to be defending the national championship against Andrade El Idolo. I suspect we are going to have a new champion. Kyle Fletcher will defend the international title against Bandito. All members of the Callis family, by his own word tonight, banned from ringside. It will not help. Bandito will go down, just as he did to Jon Moxley at Forbidden Door. He's going to take the loss again here. Tekla, Willow Nightingale, AEW Women's World Championship. To me, this one would be the toughest match to predict on the show. If I had to pick one match that I would look at and go, you know what, I'm not 100% sure about this. This would be the one. I'm going to stick with Willow. This really could go either way. I don't think that they would bring Willow back in the way that they did, just to have her go in here and lose. A lot of fanfare around her return. Very, very suspect the way they got that TBS title off of her without beating her. I think it's because they had a bigger plan in mind for her. And the biggest thing you could do with her is have her go into London as the champion against Mercedes. I think we're going to have a new champion. And Kenny Omega will defend the AEW World Championship and retain against the TNT champion, Kevin Knight. That is your main event. That is your card for Redemption. This Sunday, I will be live for this one on YouTube when it's over. So we'll have the live review going on Sunday night, early Monday morning. That is the card. The wheel earlier said 390 was the goal. We are at 374. So we are, 16 away? We're only 16 off from the goal. So let's work on that. I'm going to work on your super chats. There's Super SAIYAN Cena. Look at that. He's powering up. Hey, Greg, welcome to the channel. Look at this. Joe Hendry, he gets more airtime on my channel than he does on Raw. He popped up early. We've had some new subscribers tonight. We're climbing very close, by the way, to 93,000 subs. I think we're less than 50 away. Joseph, happy Wednesday to you, brother. And he says, happy birthday to Shawn Michaels. Yeah, how old is HBK now? Too old, I think, to be singing that theme song anymore. He hasn't been the Heartbreak Kid in about 25 years. If we're being honest. Maybe not 25, maybe 15. What are your thoughts on the Clayface trailer? I loved it. I winced. I had to look away in the airplane bathroom scene when he pulled the scissors out. Can't wait. It's hard to believe that's a DC movie. Do you remember WWE making an Undertaker comic book series during the Attitude Era? It had Mankind and Kane as the villains. I do not. I remember the Ultimate Warrior comic. I don't remember that comic. the backache kid. Just added a ladder match. What are you talking? What ladder match? What are you talking about? Joseph says Bo Dallas's 90 days is over tomorrow. Will we see him in AEW, or do you think he is done with wrestling? Do you see him coming back to WWE in the future? I mean, I can't speak to what his future plans are. I don't think we see him in AEW. I'll just say that first. Much better chance, if anything, if he wants to continue wrestling, we see him in TNA. I don't think we're going to see him in AEW. Do I see him going back to WWE? Probably not. You know, this was his second or third stint. But I definitely don't see him in AEW. Tony has enough WWE people that are going to be free shortly, who he'll have a greater desire to bring in than Bo Dallas. If Bo Dallas wants to wrestle, though, he could do indies. Like I said, TNA could be a good landing spot for him. AEW is not going to be that place. Do you remember Sting had his hair in a ponytail when he was in the Wolfpack? I do. It was brief, though, right? I think that was only for a brief period of time. Yeah, ponytail Sting was not my favorite version of Sting. How would you have booked WrestleMania 2000 if Austin and Undertaker had wrestled on the show? Well, I wouldn't have had them against each other. I would have had them doing other things. Austin probably would have ended up in the four-way. Why didn't we get Kurt Angle against Rampage Jackson in TNA? I don't know. Ask Dixie. Ask Dixie Carter. I have no idea. Do you remember Beulah McGillicuddy from ECW? Of course. How can I forget? And do you remember Raven's valet, Kimona? Kimona Wanalea? Yes, I do. I remember when she danced atop the ECW arena. I believe there was a blackout or something, and they had to kill time, so they sent Kimona up there to do like a striptease. It's ECW for you. Do you see Tekla being a crossover star in Hollywood or other? No, I don't. Masters of the Universe is out on Prime. There you go. There's your public service announcement from Joseph. If you want to see Masters of the Universe, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. You can watch it on Prime. It's out right now. Hey, Joseph, thank you, brother. Death Sight says, on SmackDown, I'm expecting Sami Zayn to confront Nick Aldis and say, Nick, you better make this right. Otherwise, I'm going to forget that you're my boss. Well, then I guess after SummerSlam, Nick Aldis will have a second match. He'll have a second opponent to work with. Sammy is absolutely owed a championship match, and I think he should get first crack coming out of SummerSlam. It's the only fair thing to do. Dried Chicken says, I checked out some clips of WWE Unreal Season 3, and my reaction is 4 letters, 1 word, neat. I'm just going to start saying the word neat when it comes to WWE. Yeah, I watched episode 1. I haven't had time for the others. I'll get to it when I get to it. It was more important for me to watch Dark Side of the Ring, which I enjoyed. So we'll have that latest review coming up on Sunday. Stephen B. Oh, actually, Dry Chicken says, I love Tekla. She's such a villain from the 90s. Tekla she understands her character. And she's very good at it. We have Steven saying, my Giants and your Mets are the worst teams ever. Yeah, I mean, the Mets are garbage. Why you would play Brett Beatty in the outfield when he fucking sucks and he's not an outfielder? But you put him out there anyway, and so of course he's bobbling balls, and this team doesn't know what they're doing. It's just the gang that can't shoot straight. I don't understand it. It's like it comes so effortlessly. I don't think they could be this bad if they tried to be this bad. It just comes naturally. Devin from NJ, buy or sell. Which Canadian great wrestler was or is a worse promo? Kenny Omega or Chris Benoit? Yeah, I mean, they were both not great promos. Who was the worst promo? Omega. Benoit, at least, there was an intensity to his promos and his delivery and a seriousness to it that I struggle with in a lot of Kenny Omega promos. San Juan Wolf. Hope you're having a great day, he says. Today's my 28th birthday, and it's been awesome so far. I just wanted to pop in and say hello. Well, I'm happy that you're having a great birthday, and I wish you a very happy birthday. Here's the 28 more times 5. Hope you get everything you want. Barry, thank you for the 15. Breaking in the new super chat. Barry says, I wish TNA did better against Raw in 2010. There was a lot of bad, but TNA was a more interesting show than Raw at the time. Dude, it was a predictable disaster. You don't go head to head when you are ill-prepared and don't have the finances and the resources to go head to head. They did to predictable results. They shot themselves in the foot. And they didn't have to do that. But there were people there who had visions of days gone by, dancing in their heads, not realizing that that time had come and gone. You were never going to be able to replicate that. And we have, now is it Simon? Simon Elijah? I hope I'm saying your name right, Simon. SIMAN. Yo, Solo, I've been a big fan since the early 2010s. Who would, in no particular order, be your top 5 wrestlers of all time? Mine is Bret Hart, Stone Cold, CM Punk, The Rock, and HBK. I don't really have a set list off the top of my head, but I could tell you that Bret Hart and Randy Savage are on there. Certainly as a kid, Hogan would have been on there. Austin. I think that's a safe choice. Very few people had the swagger of Steve Austin when the glass would shatter and he would come walking out. They're airing this 24-hour round-the-clock SummerSlam marathon on the Vault channel. So I just popped in earlier just to see what was on. It was the actually it wasn't the event. They were playing, it was like behind the scenes SummerSlam moments. But they showed the entrances for the Highway to Hell main event between Stone Cold and The Undertaker. So like Undertaker comes out first and then they kill the music and they let the tension build and build and build. And then finally, boom, the glass shatters. And they had, for his entrance, they had this thing, this like pane of glass with like a skeleton on it. And it just shatters. And then he comes sauntering on out just with that fucking attitude about him. There'll never be another. There'll never be another. So what is it? Is that 5 or 4? I think I gave you 4. I don't know. You Kurt Angle, I would rate him pretty highly. It's tough to narrow it down to just 5. But good to hear from you, brother. EJ Slam drove home from Milwaukee listening to Uncrowned and Brett's audiobook. You mentioned Siva Afi / Shaft. Then Brett did too. I never heard of him. Crazy timing. Yeah, that's eerie. That is very eerie. But yeah, I talked about the death of... I didn't talk about it on the Sound Off, but on Uncrowned, I did a little segment at the end about... in WWF on TV, he was actually Siva Afi. And I mentioned some very interesting facts about Siva Afi, especially his post-career. So you could check out Uncrowned for that. And the Uffman says, 6-way ladder match. What? For redemption? We already had 9. We already had 9 with the dogs match. Now there's 10? A 6-way ladder match. Jack Perry, Commander, Speedball. Then the winners of AR Fox against Nick Wayne and Leo Rush against El Clone on Collision. That's 5. You said it's a 6-way ladder match. That's only 5. You're missing 1. I'd love to see Leo Rush win that. I'm a big fan of the Blackheart. In fact, the Blackheart is coming to House of Glory in a few weeks. And he's going to be wrestling on that show. Well, I guess we have 9 matches confirmed, and I'm sure there'll be 10 or 11 at the end of everything, because they'll probably add some to the pre-show, although I guess if they're doing that Rougeau thing on the pre-show, they may not fit as many matches in there. I'm sure we'll get to 10 matches. He's not going to be able to help himself. Well, there you go. All caught up on your messages, all caught up on the latest updates. Oh, okay. Uffman has an update for us. The 6 men in the ladder match, Beast Mortos. Of course, Beast Mortos, because they're in Canada. We haven't seen Beast Mortos on TV because he's probably having visa issues. In Canada, the visa issues don't apply. So he can appear. All right, well, there you go. Now we have... Shut the fuck up. I forgot about him also. He's got a homecoming in Canada too. Fuck that tree. The Painmaker. All right, so Beast Mortos then is in. I still would rather see Leo Rush win. Uffman says for the #1 contendership for the international title. So the winner of that match is going to wrestle Kyle Fletcher. I presume that would be a Dynamite match and not the All-In match, obviously. Nitty Gritty with a $4.99. Vice uploaded the Samoa Joe Necro Butcher episode of Dark Side of the Ring. Yes, I noticed that this morning. It's apparently they're going to be doing that for every episode, which is fucking awesome. They should have been doing that from the beginning. I think they finally realized they were losing the war against people pirating the full episodes of the show. So I'm very happy to see that first thing on Wednesday mornings, they're putting the full episodes up. That's great. So yeah, if you want to check out the full episode, you can go ahead and check it out. It's up on the Vice YouTube channel right now. Next week, I believe, is the Big Boss Man episode of Dark Side of the Ring. Asylum Nutcase. Hey, Solo, was just wondering if you math debate your Pool C. Ah, ha, 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 ha. Very funny. I hadn't heard that one before. It's a very appropriate name, too, by the way. Asylum Nutcase. You got it. You nailed it. We got Misfit Wrestling Podcast, though, with the $12 learning tree. Says, I'll just say this. Just don't be surprised if an emergency live stream is announced by Marigold in the next few hours. And if there is, you'll know exactly who it's for. I mean, you wouldn't happen to be talking about... Pirate! It's just a guess. EJ Slemp coming in with a $4.99. Says, 2 years ago, my White Sox were the worst team in baseball history. Now they're in first. It can change for the Mets in a year or two. In a year or two. You know how many years I've been hearing this? Well, there's always next year. Sure. I wish I could be as optimistic as you. But congrats, though. That's very impressive, though, to go from the worst team in baseball history to being number one. Is a very impressive turnaround. All right, well, we hit the main goal. So we get one round here of Be the Booker. Thankfully, the wheel landed on a more reasonable number tonight. That was 390. I believe we're at 394, 395. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and be the Booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now
let's
time
do it.
To be the Booker.
Let's do it. Get the hell on out of here. We got 3 matches to book. And I want them to be good. Good matches. See, Tony? You don't need 9. All you need are 3 really good ones. We have the Dirty Heels from Impact Wrestling, Bobby Roode and Austin Aries. I was a fan of the Dirty Heels. I liked them as a team. And they will be wrestling and losing to the 2-man power trip. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H. Against the Dirty Heel. Oh my God, Bobby Roode and Triple H in the ring together. Triple H and cosplay Triple H, as some people used to call him, especially when he had the hair. That was a thing for a while. Triple H Jr., Triple H cosplay. On the ladies' side, we have Zarya from NXT. And she will be taking on Alicia Fox. Alicia Fox, or I guess as she would be in TNA these days, Victoria Crawford. That's a no for me. And there goes the sweep. Wish it happy trails. There it goes. And our main event, the man who was in the main event tonight on Dynamite, Jon Moxley. You would never know that he was part of the Shield. They tried their best to cut him out of all those Shield video packages they did this week, for the Roman and Seth stuff. He still worked his way into a few of them, but they tried their damnedest to cut him out of it. You would never know. It's as if he was never part of the Shield. The Shield was a 2-man crew. So we don't hide him here. There's no editing or blurring of Jon Moxley. He's going to be in the main event against El Grande Americano. OG Americano. I have to be very specific. OG. El Grande Americano Gable. Against Jon Moxley. Would have been a fit if it was Alicia Fox against Melina. Well, they're both in there. Could have been. It could have been Melina against Alicia Fox. That was Cameron's favorite match of all time. Remember Cameron of the Funkadactyls? Ariane? That was her favorite match. And Stone Cold he was floored when she said this on Tough Enough. Floored, I tell you. He couldn't believe his ears. Warhawk Rambo with a 5. I know the pain. I am a Commanders fan, and Dan Snyder as an owner sucked. We are better now. Don't give up hope. It just seems to get worse and worse. And Misfit Wrestling Podcast, Danhausen sadly cannot uncurse the Mets. They are uncursable. Yeah, I feel like if he tried to uncurse the Mets, it's impossible. It can't be done. I think he tried earlier this year. It didn't work. It didn't take the first time. Dried Chicken says Zarya against Victoria Crawford. Japanese commentary. Japanese commentary is great. There were a lot of times I would watch those Wrestle Kingdom shows and I would intentionally watch with the Japanese commentary on. It just, yeah, I don't understand what they're saying, but it's the enthusiasm. Especially you get into the waning minutes of like a big main event and they're just so excited. You could feel it. It's just that energy is there, you know? I don't even need to understand what they're saying. Wrestling is its own language that in certain situations, even if you don't know the words, you know what they're saying without actually knowing what they're saying. S Fallen with a 5. Been a subscriber for 5 years and I haven't donated in 2 or so. Needs to change. I agree. Thank you, brother. It's good to hear from you. Pop in more often. At least Citi Field has great stadium food, Solo. They got Shake Shack, man. Hey, Shake Shack's got good food. I haven't been to Citi Field, though, in a while. It's been a couple of seasons. If they gave me a reason to go back there, I would go. Lucky Dog in the chat says, that's why I love watching Ricky versus Tiger Mask in Japanese commentary. It is the best. It really is, man. It's infectious. Well, thank you for hanging out with me here for another Dynamite stream. Very succinct here. Not even 90 minutes. See, I got you in, I got you out. I am going to get you back here with me, hopefully, on Friday night for the SmackDown stream. I have a feeling this is where tensions boil over between CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. We have 2 very similar stories going on at the same time right now in both companies. 2 baby faces in Omega and Ospreay. Tensions are boiling over. And then on SmackDown, 2 baby faces in Punk and Cody with tensions boiling over. What was it like going to Shea Stadium back then? Shea Stadium was a dump. But it was our dump. I had a fondness for it. I started going to games at Shea Stadium when I was a wee little lad. I still have my what year was it? 87. My New York Mets 1987 or 88. 87. 87 yearbook. Still have it. Gary Carter was my favorite. He was a catcher. Gary Carter was my favorite Met. And then Darryl Strawberry. Got a lot of great memories. Devin says with a $4.99. Thank you, Devin. Buy or sell? More insane 25-year-old female character. AJ Lee in 2012 or Indy Navarrete in Obsession? Oh, Indy Navarrete. By far. Well, see, in Obsession, though, she's Nikki Freeman. You got to get it right. And she fucking killed it, by the way. At the very least, if she doesn't get a nomination come Oscar season, then there is a bias. There is a bias against horror films, I'm convinced. She should at least be nominated, if not win. She was fantastic in that movie. And honestly, so was the actor. Shut the fuck up. Fuck that tree. So was the actor who played Bear. Michael, I forgot his last name. He was also very good. Hey, Michael Darcy coming in with a $12 learning tree. Trying to get the last word in here. Look at that. I'm going to give him a little heart there. A little heart emoji from the Solomonster. Michael says, my power just went out, so here's the learning tree. Oh, shit. That sucks. I guess you're on your phone. Well, hopefully it comes back on. I don't know where you are, but hopefully you're not somewhere where it's really hot and you have no air conditioning, because that's the worst. I've had that before. We've had some famous blackouts here in New York City in the summer. Not fun. Chicago for MBK. Look at this guy dropping a gifted membership on a very lucky person, Clint Hardy. Clint was gifted a membership by Chicago for MBK. You love to see it. EJ with a $4.99. I've been to 20 ballparks. Citi Field had the friendliest usher I've ever met. As a New Yorker, would you rather have gone to Ebbets or the Polo Grounds? Ebbets. I wish I could have gone to Ebbets Field. Yeah, the ushers at Citi Field are also very nice. Hey, I got to go to the Sky Dome when it was still the Sky Dome. Now it's, is it still the Rogers Center, or did they change the name again? I went, it was still the Sky Dome. It was only 5 years after Hogan Warrior. I went to a CFL game, Toronto Argonauts game. I still have my ticket stub. Very cheap to get in. TKO would be appalled at how cheap those tickets were. Wow, the D-Lock year. Gary Carter is my all-time favorite baseball player. Yeah, he was my favorite Met. It's still the Rogers Center? Okay, good. At least they didn't change it to Guaranteed Rate Field, which apparently now is just Rate Field. What? Well, hey, at least the White Sox are number one, I guess, right? So it doesn't really matter. Oh, man. WWE fans wanted WrestleMania at Yankee Stadium, and I don't think it's a good idea. Yeah. WWE at Citi Field would be kind of interesting. Citi Field actually had a wrestling show there that I went to. Basically, it was an independent event. This was a number of years ago. They had a bunch of big names on there. Scott Steiner, Goldberg was there. God, this was right after Scott Steiner got that... was it a back tattoo or I think it was a chest tattoo? I am the Lord. Shut the fuck up. He had just gotten that new tattoo. Fuck that tree. I think it was a chest tattoo. And even from where I was sitting, like, I mean, you could see it. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Venom. It looked like the symbiote was like taking over his body. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Michael Darcy says power is back. Thanks, Solo. I don't know how you did it. Well, I work my magic, man. Sometimes I just have to think of something and it just happens. I can like will it into existence. It was a chest. Yeah, okay, it's a chest tattoo. It was to hide his pecs. Why would he want to hide his pecs, though? Pecs are sagging. Is that what happens? Well, that comes with age. And then he can buy a man's ear. Or a bro. Either name works. Didn't TNA have a few shows at Citi Field? No. I've seen the picture. Scotty should have put that tattoo artist in the Steiner recliner for that. It's an awful tattoo. I'm sorry. Like, it's awful. EJ. WWWF used to have shows at Shea Stadium, not the old Yankee Stadium, right? Yeah, they ran Shea. It's a famous show from Shea in 1980, actually. They had a Hogan-Andre match, and I believe the main event was San Martino and Larry Zbyszko. Said, AWA used to run the old Comiskey Park, but not Wrigley, because Vern was smart. Well, he wasn't so smart that he kept Hogan. He allowed Hogan to become disgruntled and leave, and that was an all-time fumble by Vern Gagne. Now, Hogan may have left anyway if Vince came calling, but we'll never know. Have I seen Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling? I saw some of their earlier shows, none of their recent stuff. I love the fact they had Morrow on commentary, I think with Callis. I think that's great. And they've got a very impressive roster. I got to meet Scott D'Amore backstage in Vegas at the Pearl because they had a bunch of different shows were running at the Pearl Theater. House of Glory had the last one that night. One of them may have been Maple Leaf, and Scott was hanging around on headset even during HOG in the back. So got to meet him. Very nice guy. TNA never should have let him go. It's another fumble on their part. That show took place 11 years ago, and I recall seeing clips of it on social media. Citi Field did have a pro wrestling show, and that's the same show that you mentioned. I need to go back, find the sound off where I talked about it. Because I went to that show, and I'm sure I spoke about it on the sound off. I gotta try to remember all the details about who put that, what promoter put that show together. I just, offhand, I don't recall all the details. And did I see the new Clayface trail? Yes, somebody asked me that earlier. I saw it as soon as it dropped earlier today, and it's even better than the first one. The first one was more of a teaser. First one was like a minute long. This one's like 2 minutes, and it's really, really good. October 23rd, week before Halloween. It comes out. I Will Be Seated. DC Comics does body horror. I saw someone say that it looks like the male version of The Substance. I still haven't seen The Substance with Demi Moore. I think that won some awards too, didn't it? Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out at some point. How do I maintain my sanity while watching WWE? Barely. Honestly, it's because of what I do here. It's a great creative outlet for me to vent, talk about what I like, talk about what I don't like. You guys get to share your opinions and thoughts, so I know I'm not completely going out of my mind when I say that something is shit. At least I know I'm not the only one who feels that way. And so it's good. It's good to have that kind of engagement and interaction, an outlet to opine on various things. If I didn't, I don't even know that I would bother anymore, honestly, with it. You know? What would be the point? It's just so far removed from what it used to be. But you wait for those special moments and matches that kind of make it all worth it. We just don't get enough of them anymore. You know? They don't come around as frequently as they used to. All right, I will see you guys on Friday for the SmackDown post show. And then this weekend is a busy one. We have a brand new sound off coming up on Sunday, episode 973. And then the Redemption live stream after the pay-per-view coming up on Sunday night. Go back and check out the Uncrowned Wrestling show from yesterday. And anything else you may have missed, we got the Raw post show up on the channel here. We had Tuesday Night Titans over with JD on his channel last night. We had a great discussion about various topics. Plenty of content for you guys. Be well, stay safe, and I will see you back here for SmackDown. Until then, take care, guys.